Well, I want to say thank you again for hopping on this call with me. I know you're a busy guy with the Bruins going on right now too. My first question is: growing up, did you always know you wanted to become something in sports?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of boys growing up, they say I want to be in sports, and so I don't know how realistic it was. Growing up in the '90s, like ESPN was like the thing, and I
Mhm.
was allowed to watch an hour of TV a day, and I always watched Sports Center, and I always wanted to be on Sports Center, and I grew up in the DC area, and I read the Washington Post growing up, like Tony Kornheiser, Michael Wilbon, Thomas Boswell, just on some unbelievable sports writers in my hometown. Probably the only other city that could maybe compete with Boston in terms of legendary sports writers. But once I got into high school and actually did the high school newspaper, that's when I realized I actually did really like it. And um, I went to college, and the first thing I did was sign up for the school newspaper, and wanted to be a sports writer there. And it's funny, I always wanted to be a baseball writer. Baseball was my first passion. I really wanted to be in the BBWAA and have a Hall of Fame vote and all that stuff, but I kind of fell backwards into football, and I'm very grateful that I did. Football to me is the best sport going right now, and
True.
it's the most sane on your personal life. Like it's
Mm.
very much like 9 to 5. Practice is the middle of the day. You can be home for dinner. There's not too much travel like some of the other sports, so you can have a pretty normal home life and also cover the NFL. So um, yeah, I mean, and if you had told 17-year-old Ben that he'd be covering the Patriots in the NFL at the Boston Globe and going to the Super Bowl every year and stuff like that, I mean, you'd have to pinch me. I do feel like a very lucky guy sometimes. So um, yeah, very fortunate to kind of be living out my dream here.
Definitely amazing. Probably Will Bonnie's made the Hall of Fame. I saw.
That's right.
Would you consider one of like the mentors you looked up to growing up?
Yeah, probably Tony Kornheiser the most. He was of all the Washington Post guys. He was the first really to kind of branch out into radio and TV, and that's, I guess, kind of what I've always wanted to do is be a writer, but also be like a one-man corporation. And I still hope one day I can do more radio and TV and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, Kornheiser and Wilbon and Thomas Boswell, who just retired, he was a legendary baseball writer. And so yeah, those were definitely some of the guys that I grew up reading. And you go back and look at some of the old Washington Post. David Aldridge, the famous NBA reporter, he was a staff writer at the Washington Post for a long time, and there are a bunch of other big names. So it's just it was a great sports section, but I was just lucky that I had very supportive parents, and I grew up in an area that was able to root for all the teams. The Washington football team and the Capitals and the Orioles and the Bullets slash Wizards, and just I always loved and ate and breathed sports growing up. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized I loved the journalism aspect of it too. I love writing on deadline and interviewing guys in the locker rooms and competing for scoops, and having your story being on someone's doorstep the first thing the next day. Although I know not as many people read the physical newspaper anymore, but yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I found something that I truly love. I love sports, and I love writing and journalism. So I've been very fortunate.
Yeah, definitely amazing. You realize you want to do that when you went into college, that you want to become a sports writer?
Yeah, and I think you're young enough at that age that you don't have to know exactly what you want to do. And I think I kind of took that approach. Like, I wanted to be a sports writer, but I also thought a lot about law school, or is there something else, PR maybe, or trying to get into the team side of sports. So I did kind of leave options open, but um, it always just kept coming back to journalism, and it's what I love doing. And I was able to do a lot of work. I didn't go to a journalism school per se. I went to Emory University in Atlanta, where they had a journalism department, but it wasn't that big there. And, they had a school newspaper, but it wasn't that big. So
Mhm.
I was kind of like the big fish in a little pond. I was able to get a lot of opportunities early and kind of do a lot. So I think that worked out well for me. And then I was able to get some summer internships and then get some jobs out of college. So um, yeah, very, I didn't know, I wasn't 100% like this is the only thing for me as far as journalism. I definitely looked at some other avenues as well, but it just always kept coming back to journalism, and I was able to make it work. And I'm really grateful for that too, because there are a lot of talented people who just, it's been tough times in the media industry the last 10, 15, 20 years, frankly, since the internet started siphoning a lot of the revenue away. And there's just a lot of talented people who, for one reason or another, weren't really able to get, careers off the ground or what have you. So I'm very lucky and very fortunate that I was able to make it work in this industry. And here I am almost 40 years old and still doing it. So I feel very fortunate.
How was it getting jobs out of college?
Difficult, very, very difficult. You have to learn to accept rejection. It's a big part of it. And, I applied to, and it really started during the internship phase. I was fortunate that each year, uh, after sophomore and junior year of college, I was able to get internships, but I mean, I got a lot of rejection letters too. And that's just part of it. And you get in your head like, oh, I really hope I can work in this place. And, they reject you or you don't even hear a rejection. Sometimes they just ignore you. So after school, I applied to 100 newspapers from Maine to California, like all over. And I think that was key too. I think some people, and not to say that this is wrong, but some people have their heart set on working in a given area. Like I have to be in Boston, and that just makes it tougher to find that job. I mean, it's, for me, I was willing to kind of go anywhere in the country, and the newspaper in West Palm Beach called me up and said, "We got an entry level job for you, covering high school sports." I said, "Sweet, I'm there tomorrow. Let's do it." And that's basically what it was. And I started out covering high school football, but also high school softball and volleyball, and all the non-revenue sports, and not exactly the glamour assignments, but it was great experience, and I actually really enjoyed it. And kind of in my downtime at the job, my boss would be like, "Hey Ben, we need an extra writer at the Miami Heat game tonight. You want to go down and write a sidebar?" Or, "We need another body at the Dolphins game today." So I got good experience covering the pro beats, and I got to watch older people ahead of me kind of mentor me a little bit. So I was able to start out covering high school sports, and then was able to get some other experience. But I mean, that's what it took. It took a lot of rejection. It took being willing to go anywhere in the country, and then getting a starting job for probably like $32,000 a year covering high school sports or whatever. And there were times where you're sitting there wondering, is this going to lead to where I wanted to? Is it going anywhere? And if you show patience and continue to work hard, things usually work out in the end. And like I've been saying all along, I'm very lucky that I found myself in this position now, and I'm more than 15 years into my career, and it's been incredible. So I'm very grateful for the way things have worked out.
That's definitely amazing. I did a call prior with Mike Reese, and he has all of his rejection letters with them. And he showed me, he was like, wow, in big envelope, it was like 50 rejection letters. I just thought it was crazy. Get to all of them.
Yeah. And the thing you have to remember too is, I mean, there are millions of reasons why people get jobs, and like talent is almost never the top reason. There's always outside factors, and you have to remember that. You have to not let that get you down. If you don't get a job, it's not because you're not talented enough. It's because there are so many other outside factors, most likely, that are also in the way. So that's something you have to remember too. That not take it personally. Just put your head down and keep working hard, and things will work out for you.
I get what you're saying with that. Definitely a big thing to remember. How was your transition going into the Boston Globe?
Yeah, and actually, I forgot to mention this. Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Globe job did come through after all the rejection letters that I've gotten over the years, I still have to pinch myself that this job did come through back in 2013. I still feel new to the paper, even though it's been 8 years. I feel like in Boston, everyone here is born here and grows up here and dies here, and they're fifth generation here. And so I'm still learning the culture a little bit. I mean,
Mhm.
all my readers, they remember where they were in '87 for that Red Sox game and '92 for that Bruins game, and I didn't live that as much, so I'm still kind of ingratiating myself to the local sports culture, I guess. But I mean, what an unbelievable market. The passion for sports here is just unparalleled, I think, anywhere in the country. It's like a big college sports town, like on steroids. Like,
Yeah.
I covered the SEC. I used to cover the University of Florida. And, if you're a Gator fan, you, of course, root for Gator football, but you also root for the softball team and the baseball team. And when the track and field team, wins, you say go Gators. And that's kind of what it's like in Boston. You root for the Bruins, you root for the Red Sox, the Celtics, the Patriots. Like, this is kind of your college. And, and I got to come into the Patriots beat 2013, right before they went on this second run. I'd like to think I'm the reason they started winning championships again. They weren't winning before I showed up, so I
That's
don't know.
true.
You
They
tell
weren't
me.
doing much.
But I mean, to be able to watch the end of the Tom Brady era and the 4 Super Bowl runs and three championships, and then on top of it, like Deflategate and Aaron Hernandez and just so many crazy stories over the years, and they're still not done writing their story because Bill
Mhm.
Belichick is still there, and who knows, they could still get back to the top of the mountain in the NFL. So to be able to be in this market, working for this legacy paper like the Boston Globe, and covering this team again, you couldn't ask for anything better as a writer. You cover a team that's interesting on the field, and they're interesting off the field. It's just endless, great material. So I've been very very lucky and fortunate to have this job, and covering the Patriots is a real pain in the ass sometimes. I mean, the Patriots make things as difficult as possible, but it's still a lot of fun. And I really get psyched for football season. Like, I can't wait for the next season. And the off season's fine. It's good to have some slow time and to have some free time, but I can't wait to jump back in and get ready for 2021.
Going to be a big season. Any specific story for the Patriots that you loved writing that stands out of any other story?
It's a good question. Off the top of my head, kind of catch me off guard. I just think the Deflategate story in general was. I know everyone in New England hated it, but I
Yeah,
loved it as a journalist. I thought it was the greatest thing ever because, you know, how stupid is the whole thing where you're
yeah,
fighting over ball
equally.
deflation, but it was really fascinating. First of all, you have just the highest powered lawyers on each side, like guys who are, attorney general of the United States, and all of a sudden they're fighting this battle of, ball inflation or whatever. And we learned so much about science. I'm learning about the ideal gas law again, going back to high school, like chemistry class and stuff. And we're learning all about the ball inflation rules for the NFL and how the football is made, and kind of going back and almost doing a who done it for how did they test the balls at halftime and what happened with the trainers, and then the legal aspect. I learned so much about how the legal side of all this works. I've never filed a lawsuit before in my life, but we followed the lawsuit from start to finish. And it's like all of a sudden, I feel like I became an expert at the end about the en banc hearings and how they choose the judges, and it was like breaking down a game, but it was like breaking down a court case, a
Yeah.
lawsuit. So I'm a big Law and Order nerd, and so I'm taking the train down to New York to go to these hearings, and it's on the big stairs of where Sam Waterston was trying his cases in Law and Order. So we were this close to going to the Supreme Court. I mean, I really wish they took that case. That would have been amazing. I mean, when do you ever expect a football writer to be covering a Supreme Court case about ball inflation or union rights? So it was Deflategate. I know that everyone in Boston hated it, but I loved it. It was because it was not serious. It was it was
Yeah.
not life and death. Like Aaron Hernandez was a big story, but that wasn't fun by any stretch. Deflategate to me was just fun, and I mean the end result of Tom Brady getting suspended 4 games too. I mean, what other league do you see the commissioner go after the star player like that? So just there was unbelievable kind of material coming out of Deflategate.
Yeah, that was a crazy time to say the least.
And sorry, I have to cut you off, and I can't. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention just as far as live events. I mean, Super Bowl 51, the Falcons 28-3 comeback. I mean, I was losing it. I don't cheer, but I was losing it in the press box just every time they made it. a key third down, or Edelman's making the catch, just like, oh my God, I can't believe what were happening. I'm trying to write on deadline and I'm ripping up my story every 2 seconds. So that game, that will never be topped. That was unbelievable. And, that's one of those nights it's like you remember that for the rest of your life.
If you go back in time and go to one moment and rewatch the game, would it be the Seahawks game or the Falcons game?
It's a great question. The Seahawks game was a better game from start to finish, but I have to take the Falcons game just because of, the comeback. I mean, 25 points late in the third quarter that had never been done before. The stakes, Brady loses that game. I mean, who's to say that they're not trading him that offseason and going with Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, if they lose that game, the whole talk that offseason's, wow, they're old and slow, and boy, did they get exposed. And, it was all roses after that, the big comeback, as it should have been. But, they were this close to having some major issues that offseason. If I have to take one game, it's got to be the Falcons. But that Seahawks Super Bowl is incredible too, and not just the Malcolm Butler, but down prior to the Falcons Super Bowl, the Patriots comeback against the Seahawks. That was the largest fourth quarter comeback in Super Bowl history. They came back from down 10. Obviously, the Malcolm Butler interception, but then who was the guy? Was it Curse? Was it Lockett? I forget the Seahawks receivers, but the guy with the crazy catch at the end.
Yeah.
Before that, Edelman taking the big shot and then catching the touchdown. I mean, just so much going on in that game. And then, of all people, Pete Carroll, the former Patriots coach, just throwing up all over himself at the end. That was just a tremendous game as well. And again, like, talk about just a writer's dream. Any writer, any of my friends who cover the other teams would kill to have any of these stories. Mm-hmm. We hog them all. I mean, we hog all the great Super Bowls, all the great off-field stories. So it's just been incredible.
And hopefully get more in the future. See how Mac Jones does. But I got to ask, is there any players that you have an amazing connection with, you think?
Any players?
Yeah, or players or coaches.
I'd rather not get too much into my relationships with current players, just because of relationships and stuff. Just generally speaking, Devin McCourty, Matthew Slater, those guys are incredible people. I love dealing with each of them, just the utmost professional, really thoughtful guys, always accountable, win or lose. They always face the media. Devin McCourty is one of the few guys on the Patriots who has the latitude to, kind of share his mind and give you some insight about things going on behind the scenes. And, I might be writing a story about J.C. Jackson, and J.C. Jackson probably isn't going to talk too much, but Devin McCourty will tell you some great story of, how he helped, something that J.C. Jackson did at practice. And Slater's the same thing. They're really stand-up guys and really tremendous and know how to, share some insight without giving away too much. So just generally speaking, I love Slater and I love McCourty. And, there are a lot of good guys in the locker room. Dante Hightower is a great guy. Cam Newton was great last year. Really enjoyed, it was only on Zoom, so we didn't get the real personal interaction, but Cam was great. Going back, I used to cover the Miami Dolphins. One of the guys I loved covering was Reggie Bush, and I didn't expect that. When he came to the Dolphins in 2011, I thought he'd be some diva, a superstar. He was the nicest, chillest guy, really low key. He was kind of like the superstar on the team, but was always available. Like any day of the week you needed him, like you could get Reggie. Super thoughtful guy, and had some good seasons. Had a 1,000-yard rushing season for the Dolphins when people said he couldn't be a running back. So I loved covering Reggie Bush. And the other guy I loved covering Chad Pennington. He was incredible. He was just another salt of the earth kind of guy. And, as a quarterback, just a great storyteller, and was a really good player too. He had no arm strength. His arm was shot, but, with his timing and accuracy, he was still a very effective quarterback. And at the end of his career, every time he took a hit, his shoulder just kept getting messed up, and he just felt so bad for him because he was such a great guy. And then the other one, who it's now a little weird to say, but Richie Incognito, the guy who's all caught up in the bullying scandal. Yeah, he was a great guy. I really enjoyed covering him. I mean, again, another guy who's always accountable, very thoughtful. If I need something, like we traded cell phone numbers, like we chat all the time. I still interview him, and now he's on the Raiders. When that bullying thing with Jonathan Martin came out, and it came out that at first it came out that one of his teammates, was teasing him and pushed him too far. I said, "Oh, that was Richie." I knew Richie did it because he's a ball buster and
Yeah.
he's one of those guys, and I just knew he took it too far, and he knows he did wrong, and he certainly paid his price. He was out of the league for a little while, but for my purposes, like I never had to deal with Richie in the locker room as far as being a player, but as far as like media, I love dealing with Richie, and he's one of the few guys left from the draft of 2005. Like he must be the best guard ever because he's got all these issues and he still keeps getting jobs. So, yeah, that's just a short list, and there are a lot of great guys in the locker room, and I hope that the NFL will let us get back to interviewing guys live now that hopefully everyone's vaccinated. And my fear is that it's all going to be Zooms again because the teams just enjoyed having the media not be in their face. But I do hope that we'll get back to some more face-to-face interaction this year.
How different was that on Zoom compared to what you always was used to?
Yeah, way different. Not nearly as effective. You're on Zoom, so everyone that you're at the mercy of whoever the team gives you, and you're at the mercy of the team calling on you. So like a lot of times at a press conference, I'll ask 5 or 6 questions, but on Zoom you get one question and that's it. Maybe they circle back to you at the end. Everyone, all the different media outlets are all using the same quotes. There's no opportunity to get unique quotes or one-on-one interviews. So it wasn't ideal by any stretch. We made do. It is what it is. I understand why they did it. For me, I covered the whole season pretty much from my home office. I went to a couple games just to go, but since it was all on Zoom, there's really nothing to do at the games. So in one sense, it was a lot more efficient last year. Instead of a 1:00 home game, I leave the house at 9 and I walk in the house at 7 p.m. This year, I was able to play with my kids, give them lunch, pop into my office at 12:30, cover the game. I'm done by 5 o'clock, have dinner. It was kind of nice. And, I love traveling, but I didn't have to travel. And so I got a lot more home time and time with my kids. So that was good. The journalism, I became less and less reliant on quotes. I mean, so just because everyone's using the same quotes. So to me, it's more about analysis and having good takes and doing good research and things like that. Just finding ways to make your stories unique, which was difficult last year just because everyone is using the same quotes. So, I hope they do let us back in the locker room just because, you're in there for 45 minutes. There's 53 guys in the locker room. You can, even when you're not interviewing guys, you can just shoot the breeze and develop relationships. And that was, some of the best stuff you can do too, is just develop relationships with these guys and show them that you're human. So, it definitely wasn't ideal last year, and hopefully we can get back to the way it used to be.
Yeah, definitely a big change indeed. But my next question would be is during your free time, what are some of your favorite things to do?
I love playing golf. I'm an older guy, so love playing golf when I can sneak away. So much of my free time now is spent with my kids. I have 2 boys; they're ages 4 and 2, and we're just getting into all the sports now. I've just tried to put a ball in their hand or a golf club in their hand or a baseball bat and just let them go wild. And my kids love it. So we play with T-ball and wiffle ball all the time. And we kick soccer balls and we go to the playground and stuff. So a lot of my free time is spent with my kids now. On my own, like I said, I like playing golf. I love listening to music. My mom was a music teacher growing up. So I love listening to music, and I got a record player for my birthday last year. So I'm buying some old LPs, getting into records, and I don't know, not too much. I guess I'm kind of boring. I work and spend time with my family and play a little golf, and that's it. So that's I guess the older you get, the fewer things you need to make you happy.
Yeah, I have a little sister who's 3, and all the sports, testing them all out, see who you like the most. But it's a fun time seeing them attempt sports.
Yeah, for sure.
My next
Absolutely.
question would be is what would be your biggest recommendation to young writers like myself?
Write. The recommendation is to write, and you're at school now, so you have some opportunities. You got a school newspaper, I'm sure. I don't know if there's like a magazine on campus. If there's a local, town newspaper, it's a great opportunity to call up the sports editor or whoever, send them an email and ask if you can do some stringing for them, cover some games, even if it's high school games, just get some experience, start a blog. You just want to write and try to have a critical eye. Like the hardest thing to do is to self-edit, but it's very important. One thing people love to do is to write long. Here's my 5,000 word story on this. Here's my 3,000 words on that. I'm more impressed if you can write short. Learn to write short, I think, is very important. It's a lot harder to write 600 words than it is 1,500 words, if that makes sense. Because you got to make every word count, and you got to keep it nice and tight. And a lot of your readers aren't going to sit through 1,500 words. They're going to read the first few hundred, and then they're going to lose interest. So, to me, the skill of writing short and tight, and getting right to the point, that's a very important skill to develop. And those are skills, writing skills can help you not just in journalism, in any sort of, field. The ability to write and communicate is really important. So, writing and practice your on-camera skills and your interviewing skills. You have all these good opportunities now. Technology makes it so much easier. You've got a great head start here by doing your own podcast. That's tremendous. But yeah, just take advantage of these opportunities, try to get internships, write for the school, write for, local newspapers in your towns or what have you, websites, whatever. Just get out there and do it. It's the only way to get better.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Those are all the questions I have. Is anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's about it. I mean, it's a lot of changing times in the, media industry right now, but it's great to see young guys like yourself have kind of the intuition and the drive. And, you can make your own opportunities now. That's kind of the beauty of the internet. You don't need to necessarily be hired by a company to make it. You can kind of make your own opportunities now. So, just keep going for it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. One last question that I just thought of. Who are you rooting for today? The Capitals or Bruins in this series?
Well, I am rooting for the Caps. That's my team growing up. I mean, I saw that was the one team we used to share season tickets. So we'd go to like 10 games a year, and they would always break my heart. They'd always lose to the Penguins, Lemieux and Yager in the playoffs, and they'd blow 3-1 leads. And, I'm an adult now, and I don't get too like wrapped up in sports. But when the Caps won the Cup in 2018, I had a moment, man. It got a little dusty. Like that was a cool moment. And I was this close to shelling out the money to go out to Vegas for Game 5 so I could see it. And, ultimately I didn't, decided I wanted to pay for my kids' college and things like that. But I love the Caps. It was 2-2 when I turned it off. So I got to get back to the game pretty soon. But and nothing against the Bruins. If they win this series, I'll be pulling for the Bruins hard the rest of the way. But I got to root for my Caps this time.
I appreciate you hopping on this call with me. Definitely time to go watch the game. But thank you once again.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you.